And Carl, you want to go back to the first one, and then I'll get started. If you can get back. All right. So, hi everyone. Welcome. My name is Kasper, and I'm the owner of Monarch Staffing. Monarch Staffing has been putting people to work for the past 20 years. We've placed close to 10,000 people in jobs, and my goal here today is to really help you get your resume noticed, make some changes to it, redesign it, so that you can ultimately get a call for the interview. Now, you usually find me at the Career Link offices doing these resume redesigns and resume workshops, but because we've all been in a pandemic over the past few months, decided to take it to Zoom and see if we can help more people and help them redesign their resume so they get noticed. So we're going to have a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. Number one, we're going to use the chat button. So we put some directions in the chat. If you'd like to set up your presentation in something called side-by-side view, you can go up to your settings, more, and you can put side-by-side view. This way you can see me on one side and you'll be able to see the whole presentation on the other side. Second, the chat is also going to be used for audience participation. We have some $10 Wawa gift cards that we're going to be giving away. We have a great book. At the end, please stick around. We have a $50 drawing that we're going to do for an Amazon gift card. Okay, and number three, if you can all mute your Zoom links. This way we won't have any distractions and dogs barking in the back or anything like that. That would be really, really helpful as we get this underway. Okay, so let's get started. Redesigning your resume, how to get it noticed and how to get the call for the job. So here's the thing, it's you, it's your skills, it's your abilities, and things are changing. That's the only thing constant we can count on these days is change. So what do you have in your briefcase that you're ready to go and you're ready to take it to another job? It's your own personal brand. And so many times I find that when we're interviewing people in person or on Zoom, I find out so many great things about people, but yet it's missing from their resume. So the goal here is to really help you articulate how good you are in person and get all that goodness and your best foot forward on your resume and put your own personal brand out there. So here's the thing. Over the years, we've talked to hundreds and thousands of hiring managers and recruiters. And we're going to talk about what recruiters give the thumbs up to when they look at a resume, and then how to get your resume from just average, good, better, and get it to the best it can be. But we're also going to talk about the times when the recruiters go like this, no, this is not really what I want to see, and you don't get the call. So here's the thing about your resume. Your resume is never going to get you the job. Your resume will get you the interview, and then it's up to you to get the job, the next part. So this is our first part series in a 3-part series bootcamp about getting people back to work. So this part today is really redesigning your resume. Next Wednesday, it's going to be sharpening your interview skills. And the Wednesday after that is how to leverage the right recruiter for you to land a job. Okay, Car. Okay, so let's talk about this. I am sure that some of you on this call probably sent your resume and never heard crickets, didn't hear back from the hiring manager or the recruiter. So I really want to talk about why are you not getting a phone call or an email back and getting the interview? I'd like to get some ideas from the audience participation to use in the chat. And share with me some ideas as to why you think when you sent your resume, you did not get a call back, or an email back, or an engagement back, or hear anything back. And once we figure this out and we know why we're not getting calls, then we can restructure your resume to really get it seen and get it noticed. So I'm just going to give everybody a few minutes. My friend Curtis Jenkins, he has this great book out, and we're going to share this book. It's the only job search book you'll ever need. That'll be shared in anybody have any ideas? Carly, you want to read off some of the things in the chat as to why people are not maybe getting a call back for their resume?
Yep, so we have resumes maybe missing some keywords, maybe there's too many applicants applying, resume isn't presenting the correct skill sets.
Yep.
Maybe their resume is boring looking.
Right, yep. These are all great things.
Hiring manager's attention.
Yep.
maybe companies just taking in resumes to kind of fill in their pipeline rather than actually looking.
Yeah, if it's a real job or not. Yeah, for sure. I hear you. So let's look at the next one. We're going to go over these in detail, and that's what this presentation is about. It's really kind of looking at these. So you're right on the money here. So could it be your experience? Could it be your work history? You know, if you have a resume and you have a work history, maybe there's some big gaps in that work history, and the recruiter might just not call you because of that. They look at another resume and there's no gaps and they have all the skills and qualifications, they're probably calling them first, unless you start articulating as to why those things are absent. Maybe you just didn't meet the minimum requirements. Somebody in the chat said keywords. So keywords is critical. I mean, we're in the day and age now where everything is read by a computer. It's applicant tracking systems. So if you don't have the keywords, you may or may not be getting the call or the contact. And formatting, somebody said maybe it looks boring, maybe it just doesn't look that great. That's another reason why you might not get a call. Formatting is really, really important in a resume. You got to make it look good. Okay, Carl. So when we figure out why we're not getting calls for an interview, this is what this is about. We want to avoid your resume getting dropped into this black hole. We want to redesign it, we want to pump it up, and we really want to make it look sharp so you actually get the phone call to be able to interview for the job. So here, how's a resume read? I have with me a sample resume. I'm going to ask you in the chat, how do you think recruiters, hiring managers, HR people, talent acquisition, how do you think people read a resume? Does anybody have any ideas in the chat that they can share? How is it read? What do your eyes go to first? What do you think a recruiter or a hiring manager looks at first? And then how do you think they read that resume? Car, is there anything in the chat?
So we have, they don't.
They don't, yeah. Sometimes they don't.
We have top to bottom, maybe putting it through a keyword software program.
Yeah.
Looking just for highlights like work history, dates, last position held. A lot of people saying just looking for keywords, experience and education.
Great. Okay, good. You guys got the idea. So those of you that actually have your resume printed out, I don't know if you can see, I have one printed out here. What I want you to do is I want you to just take your resume and do me a favor, fold it in half. So a resume is read across your name, your location, and they look at your key summary and your background information, and it's read down. So a resume is read like an upside down L. It's read across and down. So your eye is automatically drawn to what's on the side, and that right side there is typically your dates of employment. So recruiters and hiring managers, when they're bringing up your resume on screen, they bring it up, they read it across and down. So if your statement at the top is not powerful enough and doesn't have enough impact, or your dates are really choppy, that might be right out the door. So we're going to teach you some ways to kind of overcome that so you actually get some great calls. Okay, Car. So can you guess? Anybody have any ideas in the chat? Don't play this yet. So anybody have any ideas in the chat? As in the first person that guessed this right, I'm going to send this book out. The only job search book you'll ever need from my friend Curtis Jenkins here. So can anybody guess? And then Carly, are there some things in the chat? So before let people guess, give them a few minutes and then we'll play the video. How long do you think a typical recruiter looks at a resume?
1 to 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 8 seconds, 10 seconds, 15 seconds, 10 seconds, a minute.
So we'll give everybody like 30 seconds to add their chat, enter your number, guess, just pick a number, and we will then play the quick video. So yeah. Car, just have to type no more guesses and then we'll pick the video. We'll play the video. All right, ready? Here we go. And the magic number is?
It'll probably play an ad first.
Don't start a business.
No ad.
Buy an existing business.
You can see it. You skip the ad there. I feel like I'm in Jeopardy. guessed and you were the first person.
There we go.
Mhm.
A little loud. I muted it.
Yep, crossing down. That's it. 6 quick seconds. So whoever was the first person to guess 6 seconds, please put you can send it right to Carly Swallow. You can send your name and your address, and we will send you out this book, okay? Did anybody get it right, Car? You don't have to say the name to them.
I think the closest was 8 seconds.
Oh, okay, interesting. Okay, that's it. You got 6 seconds. So let's how are we going to make those 6 seconds count? Number 1, the format matters, right? Gone are the days of handheld resumes. Well, literally, we're in a pandemic. Gone are the days of handheld everything. Nobody's touching anything these days, not even the resume. So keep the resume. Use the white space as much as you possibly can on your resume. I know you might not be able to see this all the way, but use the white space. Make the margins 0.5, use a nice clean bulleted format. I think somebody said, why aren't I getting calls? Maybe my resume looks boring. It doesn't look great. So keep it simple, make it look great. That's really, really important. And your contact information is really so important, and save as. So as I said, if you flip the top of your resume and you turn it in half, this is what is called prime real estate. Really, really important in your resume to make sure you have your contact information at the top, that you have your link to your LinkedIn profile if you have it. Very, very important. I have seen people lose jobs because their LinkedIn profile didn't match what was on their resume. We had a candidate who was an executive secretary for a $60,000 a year job. She was on her 3rd round of interviews and was going to see the president. Before she walked in, the president looked at her LinkedIn profile. Her date on her LinkedIn profile was transposed from the date that was on her resume. We got a phone call from that recruiter that morning, and it was supposed to be a 3 o'clock interview, to pull that candidate out of the running, because if she can't take care of her LinkedIn profile and be correct there, how the heck is she going to take care of me and my business? And she lost the opportunity for the job. So LinkedIn is out there. We want to give people a reason to screen you in, not screen you out. So please, by all means, make sure your LinkedIn profile is matching up with what is on your resume. And I want you to carefully look. I'm going to ask for one quick audience participation here. Look at the Sample Sue Summit. Look at the bottom. Is there anything that you could think of that could be possibly wrong with this email? Enter it in the chat. Anything that would stand out that would be glaring enough.
Someone did ask Laura if they need a LinkedIn profile.
It's a good idea to have one. Some professions, not so much. I find that teaching professions, not really. Nursing, healthcare, not too much, but usually any general business, sometimes you do need to have one. Depends on your skill set. We can talk, you can share with me your resume and I can let you know that. It's a good idea to have one. But if you do have one, make sure things match up. And if you don't have one, that's okay too.
So we did get a couple correct answers. AOL is old, dated.
Yes.
Yep.
AOL's dated. That's why I put that in there. You know, everybody, it's free. Make a Gmail account. People will look at you with an AOL and think you're not up to par on your technology. You know, the whole goal of this is to give the hiring manager and the recruiter a chance to screen you in and not screen you out. So if you're dating yourself with an old AOL email, get rid of it. Put a Gmail in there. Just a little quick insider tip. So this is really important. Gone are the days of the objectives. Nobody really looks like an objective anymore. Everybody's objective is to get a job, right? So what do we want to get a job with? We want to replace it with a background summary and your 30-second commercial. And that's a really bad picture I put up there, but really your 30-second commercial is considered the bait on the hook to get the recruiter or the hiring manager to actually give you a call. I want you to take a look at your resume and think about some things that maybe you got a pat on the back with. Maybe you had a performance review, and somebody gave you an opportunity to talk about some of your successes, and that was written into your performance review. So what are those successes? It's okay to take those successes that are buried deep within your resume and put them at the top of your background summary. You can call it a background summary, a professional experience, what have you. We have some samples we can certainly send out and share after. But on the one side here, you see kind of more of a boring background summary. Everybody's a team player. Everybody has great organizational skills. But what makes you stand out? What's your defining statement? What is your set aside? What is it that makes you different from your peers doing the same job? What have you been commended with over the years? So on the opposite side, you can see that we put some great things in here, that maybe somebody was awarded an Employee of the Month. Maybe they successfully completed a 6-month project in 3 months. So there's some things that you can add to kind of, I call it, give it the wow, give it the bam, kick it up a notch, the emerald. You know, make it really be defining and make it have impact. Make the recruiter and the hiring manager want to call you. Okay. Remember, at the top of the resume is seen first. So there's statements that you put at the top of the resume need to have impact, need to really speak to your successes. They don't need to be buried at the bottom of your resume. They can be added in under your bullet points, of course, for some key accomplishments, but they should be at the top of your resume. You see on one side, this is a finance manager who worked for a mid-sized company who actually had this bullet in his background summary. And then when we were in the interview, I asked him, how big was the company? He's like, Laura, it's a $50 million company. I'm like, well, why don't you put that in there? That's a big difference. Running a $5 million company is a big difference in managing a $50 million company. So adding impact is what you want to look at. There's a woman that I interviewed many years ago from the Philadelphia Inquirer, Ruth, I'll never forget her. And she was an ADP payroll processor, but on her resume, she just had bullet process payroll. And when I asked her to tell me a little bit about how many people she had, she said she had 1,000 people that every other week that she processed payroll for. And when I asked her what system she used, she said, I used ADP. So those were the key things that we put into that resume. So then I put the resume down and I said, Ruth, can you tell me what else isn't on your resume that I would need to know in order to help you find a good job? She said, Laura, I never missed a day of work in 12 years. I'm like, what the heck? That goes on the resume. Perfect attendance for 12 years. I said, even in a snowstorm? She goes, even in a snowstorm. She goes, you can step out and call my boss. I did. I stepped out, I called her boss, and the boss said she was there every day, never missed a day of work in 12 years. We put that at the top of her resume. At that time, I didn't have an ADP payroll processing job, but we put that at the top of her resume. The woman had been out of work for close to 6 months. After we redesigned her resume, she got a job offer in 3 weeks. She has been one of my best referrals. So it's really important to put key things into your resume that you do and the key things that are your set aside so you can find a job too. All right, here's the other part about resumes. In meeting with hiring managers and recruiters, when they look at systems, the text boxes, the things that are on Microsoft Word, that crazy template that's out there, do not tell Bill Gates I'm saying this, he probably already knows, but get rid of the text boxes. Do not use those text boxes. They are really hard for applicant tracking systems to read. It's better off to stick with a Microsoft Word plain document, and then when you go to save that document, you can save it as a PDF. All right, so some of the systems are just incompatible. And the second part of this is, by all means, have somebody else read your resume. Proofread, proofread, proofread. Spelling, grammar, accuracy. I've seen customer service spelled as costumer service. You know, sometimes you're just not going to get the call. And certainly, if they're running a customer service search and you're in the applicant tracking system and your word says costumer, you're certainly not getting a call. So really be careful with your words and look at it individually. And I always highly recommend give it to somebody else to read, because sometimes it's really hard to see the forest through the trees. You look at your resume so many times, you miss things. Give it to somebody else. Send it to somebody who's maybe not even in your field, somebody completely different. If you're an IT person, give it to somebody who's a teacher. If you're a teacher, give it to somebody who's in customer service. Try to give it to somebody who's not in your field to have a really great objective person look at your resume. All right, so here's the thing about this. We talked about how the resumes are read. They're read across and they're read down. So what is really important here is that you need to account for your gaps of employment and the dates. When you go back and you're looking at your resume, it's really key to put 10 to 15 years back for work history dates. Any dates after that, you don't have to put. But here's the thing. If you've worked for maybe 20 or 25 years like myself, my resume will have, it'll say other relevant work experience, and then I might list my jobs and my job titles and where I worked. But I'm certainly not going to give anybody the dates. Again, give people a reason to screen you in, not to screen you out. And if you were part of a large layoff, and maybe you have a workout now due to COVID, highlight that. It's okay to say on your resume in parentheses, reason for leaving. That's the #1 question that every recruiter and hiring manager is going to ask you when they get you on the phone or a Zoom for an interview. Why did you leave your job? What happened? So if you can take the questions out and make it easy for the hiring manager or the recruiter and put in parentheses, maybe why you left your job due to a mass layoff, COVID layoff, company was acquired, or you moved, you can put that on your job, or decided to, stay home, work on your professional development. The one thing you do not want to ever put on your resume is that you left because you were terminated. That is a no. So do never put that on your resume. But other reasons, yes. So you have to do what makes sense. And when you go to put those bullets, I have a resume here in front of me. You want to make it really easy to read. And you want to have those resumes really simple so that those bullets are specific and they're measurable and achievable and timely. And make them real. Like, if I look at a resume that has bullet handle 2,000 calls a day as a customer service representative, that might not be realistic. So remember, these bullet points on your resume it's not your job description, and we're going to talk about this. It's really about your accomplishments. So go ahead, Carly. So your employment history that you have there, and you can see this has a little bit about the employment history, and it has a little bit about what they're doing, and it has a really great optimization, 250%. They increase this SEO optimization. But there's a problem with this. The first person that picks out the problem with this is going to get a $10 Wawa gift card. Carly, just make sure you write down the name and we can get an address for that person. So enter into the chat, what is the mistake that you see under this employment history? Please enter it in the chat. I'll give you a few minutes to look at that. I'll take a quick drink. What could be wrong in looking at this employment history statement?
Misspellings.
Anybody see it? Give me your misspellings.
Missing. A couple. So someone said missing the months.
Missing, that's #1, missing months, correct?
The word launched spelled wrong.
A couple others.
E-newsletter.
Yep.
Spelled newsletter.
And what else is spelled wrong? Does anybody get all 4?
Someone said SEO undefined.
That's not really one of the missing ones, but anybody get the big one that's glaring?
Website spelled wrong.
Yes, who said that? That's good, Carly. Just make sure you get their name in. Yep. So yeah, website, e-newsletter, launch. So just remember, sometimes it looks really great, but you have to really kind of look at the words individually, and then look at if it makes sense as a whole. So it's really important to proofread your resume because you're going to find errors and mistakes and give it to other people. Good job. Okay, so here's the thing. Nowadays, everybody on the other side says, everybody wants to, everybody's a team player. We're all hardworking. We're results driven. This is what employers want. They want this out of people. But what do your accomplishments really say about you? They're used action verbs. We're going to have attached to our website under job seeker resources, action verbs that you'll be able to pull out by the end of the day today. We'll send them to you here as well. But these action words really are set aside as your accomplishments. And these are the words that you want to now start to include in your resume. And the way you think about that is sometimes you think about what happens if you didn't do your job. What would then happen? Go ahead, Carl. So when we talk about the applicant tracking systems, there's something called TagCrowd. I'd like all of you to write down that word. It's TagCrowd. We can't send the file here because it's too large. But TagCrowd is a visualization website that will take your resume and you drag and drop it into TagCrowd, and it's free. And you drag it in and you hit visualize. And you'll see on one side, this was a person's resume that we had initially before we kind of bammed it and gave it the emerald approach. And on the other side, what the revised ones are. So the words that stand out greater are the words that would be coming up in a quick job search. So my friend, I'll give you an example about this. My friend was a benefits manager. She was out of work for a good 6 months. And every time she kept sending her resume, she was not getting any phone calls. And when she came to me and said, Laura, can you please look at this resume and why aren't I getting calls? At first glance, I said, it looked great. It looked really good. So I said, let me do you a favor and drop it in this thing called TagCrowd. So what do you think? Does anybody have an idea of the most frequently used word in her resume was and the reason why she wasn't being found when it comes to keywords? She was a benefits manager. Any idea? You can enter it in the chat if you have an idea of what this person's keyword was. If you heard my presentation before and you know the answer, please don't say that. That would be cheating. No. Does anybody have any ideas of what her keyword might be?
Someone said the, someone said I, someone said manager, benefits.
Yeah. So here's what it was. Actually, the word was employee. She had the word employee almost 20 times in her resume. Because think about that. As a benefits manager, you are constantly serving the employees. She had been a benefits manager for 5 years, for 5 different companies over a 15-year period. She had a 2 full-page resume, and that word employee showed up 20 times. So although everybody, recruiters and hiring managers and employers, we're all looking for employees, nobody is doing a keyword search on the word employee. And that was the most frequently used word in her resume. I just did one the other day for a job seeker, and we dragged and dropped it in, and her most frequently used word was the word worked, W-O-R-K-E-D, worked. So we had to make some changes. We changed her resume around. We made it be more benefits driven, so she was able to find a job. In about 8 weeks, she landed a job. So keywords do matter, and it's really important to drag and drop your resume into there. The other way that you use TagCrowd as a job seeker is you take the job posting. Take the job posting that somebody has out there, and you drag and drop it into TagCrowd. And you see what their keywords are that they are looking to hire. And that you can use to help you kind of tweak your resume if you have those right skills and qualifications to be able to get seen quicker and get to the top of the pile. So you can use it 2 ways. So let's talk about accomplishments. So your resume, please remember this if you don't remember anything else about this presentation, your resume is never your job description. Your job description is bullet, answer the phone. Your job description is bullet, handle customer service issues. Your job description is bullet, process accounts payable. Your accomplishments is what makes the difference. Employers are hiring you for your accomplishments. That is really important. So you might know on your resume that you answered phones, but maybe on your resume you would say handled up to 250 incoming calls a day. Maybe you resolved customer issues and problems, but how did you go about doing that? Did you have a 95% resolution rate? What was the accomplishment? What did you, I call it the MSA, what did you made, save, or achieve at the company? Think about a situation and in your job, in your day-to-day work, about maybe something that happened. You're going to be answering behavioral interview questions, and we're going to talk about that on our next session. But even on your resume, you can articulate some things. So if something that you did resulted in a savings for the company, if you decreased time, if you increased value, if you did something, That's the accomplishment. The employers want to hire you for your accomplishment. But be careful on your resume, and this is especially important for those of you that have a tendency to have maybe more experience, is that don't give away your secrets on your resume. So, I always think about that saying, why buy the cow if you can get the milk for free? Here's a situation. I had an HR vice president send me a 5-page resume a few years ago. And she said, Laura, I cannot cut my resume. So I said, okay, I'm going to do it for you. So we did. We got it down to 2 pages. But what I found in her resume is that she was getting interviews. She was getting calls and she was getting interviews, but she was never getting hired. And the reason she was never getting hired is on her resume, she actually told the employer how she went about decreasing 50% of such and such. So you can put it on your resume that maybe you decreased overtime by 50%, maybe you increased revenue by 350%, maybe you streamlined something, but don't ever tell an employer how you did it. I want them to hire you for this. Don't give the store away on paper. Get them to hire you. Get them to call you in for the interview. Your accomplishments are key. They're going to hire you for the how. That's not something that needs to be articulated on a resume. And that's why this woman had a 5-page resume. We cut it to 2, and she got a job in 3 months. And we actually made her resume more of a functional resume. And I'm going to get to that a little bit later, because this woman was a vice president and a high-level HR person for about 20 years in her life before I saw her resume. And we changed it around. So sometimes a chronological resume makes sense. So think about this. Turning your duties, your job description, into your accomplishments. And how do you do that? Now, sometimes your resume will have just basic to-do things that you've done. But I really want you to think about, and I touched on it earlier, if you don't do your job, how does it affect the rest of the people, the stakeholders at your company? And what happens if you don't do your job on time? What's the impact on the employer, your positive impact? What are the results? What did you do for them? So this is a really great slide to take a picture of, because you want to really think about how you were able to help your past employers and some of the things that are your set aside and make you different. And we want that resume to be as good as you are in person on paper. All right, so Simon Cowell, what is a no, right? So here's the thing, on your resume, these are some of the things that should not be on your resume. But I am going to hedge a little bit on my bets here. In this Delaware Valley region, we have an awful lot of prep schools and alma maters. So if you did go to a prep school for high school, I would put on your resume that you went to St. Joe's Prep, Immaculata, maybe the Malvern Prep, but don't list your dates. There seems to be a very big camaraderie around prep schools. So it's okay if you want to keep that on your resume. Please don't list anything related to race, religion, any of that kind of thing. If you were out there and you volunteered at a church, leave it non-denominational, put it out there. The goal is to have people hire you and to bring you in so you can get the interview. Hobbies, you don't need to put a hobby on your resume unless your hobby is now going to be the job that you're going after. If you're giving it all up and you're going to Colorado and you're going to be a ski lift instructor and you've skied every Black Diamond Hill from here to wherever, then put that at the top of your resume and make everything else small. So things, have to make sense for you. And you don't need to put about references upon request. What I encourage everyone that's looking for a job or in job seeking mode, if you have a LinkedIn profile, reach out to your prior bosses and coworkers and ask for recommendations. That's really going to help you when you're in your job search mode, even before. So as you're doing great things, ask for recommendations. So here's the thing, one size does not fit all. What works for you might not work for your friend sitting next door. A chronological resume is probably 90%, what we see in today's world, but a functional resume could make sense. So a functional resume would make sense if you've been a job hopper and you've hopped from job to job to job. Maybe you want to highlight some of your skills and qualifications up top. Maybe you want to highlight some of your accomplishments there. And maybe at the bottom, you might want to put your jobs. The woman who had the 5-page resume was a vice president and a director of HR for 5 different companies over a 25-year period. For her, it made absolutely no sense to have a chronological resume. So instead, we split out her skills and qualifications and we made it functional. What did she do in the area of compensation? What did she do in the area of training, talent development, talent acquisition, benefits, policies and procedures? We articulated what her functional skill set was, and at the bottom of the resume, we list each company, the job, and the dates, and that was it. It was clean, it was 2 pages, and she landed the job. So format is going to be different. So I want to talk about this for just a few minutes. If you're coming out of school and you're looking for a job, and you have some special skills or things that you've gotten, maybe you were an Eagle Scout, that's going to go to the top of your resume under your background summary. But in 10 or 15 years, that's probably going to drop to the bottom of your resume. If you're in school and you're changing careers and you went back to school, that is going to be at the top of your resume. If you're like me and you've been out of school for many years, that's going to flip to the bottom of your resume. If you have memberships and associations and it's something that you want to get into, again, that'll be at the top of your resume. Anybody that's a veteran, please encourage you, put your name and put veteran right at the top of your resume. People want to hire veterans. It's really important. I would drop your education date and recommend dropping your date if it's been 10 years or so. You've been out of college or out of school, drop it to the bottom. If you only have your high school education, do not put your dates on there. You can leave it off. Okay. Any special honors or achievements, again, those are things that are set aside. They go to the top of your resume. Everybody's different. You want to do what's right for you to put your best foot forward so you get the call for the interview. Our goal here is to make the hiring manager's job easy and to help you get noticed and get a call for the interview or get the email. We're looking at millions of people jumping back into the workforce in the next couple months. The pressure is going to be on to get a job. Our goal is to give you that really great resume and move you from an applicant to a candidate so you land the interview. Making the job easy for the recruiter and the hiring manager, and using some of these tips and techniques that we talked about is really going to help leverage you to get the call. Just a quick recap. Format matters, really important there. Look at your spelling. You can see some of these here. I'm not going to read each one of them. We talked about gaps and dates, accomplishments, using your action words. Okay. And I want you to think about this. Setting up a professional email account is really important. I can't tell you how many times that we get resumes at the agency, or that I've seen over the years in front of recruiters and hiring managers that have the craziest email addresses. I'm Mama 22. You don't need to keep that separate at gmail.com. I've seen one junk in the trunk at AOL.com. Get rid of it. So these are the things that we don't want to see on a resume. Completely fill out your application online. And here's a key thing that you want to think about. And this gets missed an awful lot. Save your resume as your name. Okay, so when you see your resume and you go at the top and you hit save as, can I tell you at Monarch and probably agencies and everywhere, this is the complaint that I hear #1 from hiring managers and recruiters. They get resumes coming in that say resume final, good copy resume, final resume, mom's resume. We got resumes that said dad's resume, the good final copy, my resume, my initials on my resume. Save your resume as your name. And if you're lucky enough to have a short name and you can get your profession in there, Mike Smith HR resume is even better. Susan Tell sales rep, even better. Sales resume. You can save it as a doc, you can save it as a PDF. But do everybody a favor, do yourself a favor, save your resume as you. Because think about it, if you're on the other end and you're receiving a resume, and you want to call that person, or you have to send it over to somebody, then you have to bring it up, then you're going to have to resave it as the person's name, then you're going to have to resend the file to maybe the hiring manager if you're in recruiting with the name saved, then you got to go back, and then you got to save it in your applicant tracking system with the name. So, think about that. There's a lot of steps that people have to go through to just do a simple name change. If you make it easy for the hiring manager and the recruiter, then you're going to get some calls for the interview a lot quicker than if you sent in the My Final Copy resume doc. Social media. We got to really talk about this. This is really important. A couple things I really want to bring to light here about the social media. These are just some extra things to consider when you're putting your resume together and what's out there. So social media is a double-edged sword. It can cut you and it can cut you hard. Here's what happens. Nowadays, when recruiters and hiring managers have applicant tracking systems, they even have systems inside their systems. When they bring up your resume, on the other side, believe it or not, comes up your social media profile, comes up with your LinkedIn, comes up with your maybe your Google account, could come up with your Facebook, your Twitter feed, your Instagram. It could come up with every one of your social media things just by your name. So really be careful. Clean up your social media if you're in a job search mode. Make sure it pictures you in a positive light. Would you hire you? Think about that. Okay, and we're going to wind up just with a couple things here with some job seeker resources and any quick questions that you might have. These are some resources that you might use to help find a job. Of course, monarchstaffing.com. You can send your resume to me. I'm on the next slide there. And my email is just, there's career link, some GCF Learn Free. Carly, we'll send out the last couple slides here. And then my information is on the next page there. It's lkasper@monarchstaffing.com if you'd like to send me your resume. And we can kind of do a once over. You do your homework first. I want to thank you for the opportunity, and I'll certainly take any questions. You can check out our jobs at monarchstaffing.com. We have quite a bit of permanent positions right now that we're working on filling, which is great. We have some projects going on, and you can send it to me directly at lkasper@monarchstaffing.com. So I want to thank you for your time. I hope that some of these tips and hints were really helpful and that your resume is going to be redesigned so you can land the interview. And next Wednesday, I hope to meet you all and help you with the next step of the interview process. So give me a minute and I'm going to end our recording and take any questions that you might have.